What's an experience you've deemed supernatural and cannot find a rational explanation for? I had just moved into my first apartment. It was a very small studio in a not so great neighborhood. I was 21. I started noticing things going missing after a couple of weeks. A nice pair of underwear. A charm bracelet. Things I thought maybe I left somewhere or lost or misplaced. Until I noticed a picture of me and my friend I had on my fridge was gone. I was perplexed. I turned my apartment upside down. No picture. Over the course of the year, little things would just disappear. I even went to the office and asked how many employees had access to my apartment. The office manager showed me the safe with the keys and showed me the log of who takes what key when. None of the dates added up to missing items. I was perplexed. I was about 2 weeks from moving out because my lease was up and I was moving in with my boyfriend. A storm came in and damaged the apartment building. Roof and HVAC maintenance let me know they'd be coming in to replace ductwork and replenish insulation. The guys come in, go in my bedroom closet, and lo and behold, there's a panel leading to this weird attic space that spans the entire half of the apartment, 4 homes. I had no idea it was there and the maintenance guys assure me that it's only accessible from my apartment. I decided to poke my head up and look about while they were up there. In the back corner above my bedroom was what I can only describe as a shrine of my stuff. My underwear, picture, jewelry, all of my missing items. All together. Placed in a triangle. I got so freaked out I just left it all there. I moved into my boyfriend's house that night. I had him and his friends move my things for me so I didn't have to go back. I told the apartment manager but she didn't seem to care at all. I get physically ill when I talk about it still because I know someone was watching me that whole time and I had no clue. Here's my go-to story, which I've posted before. I went on a Tinder date a couple of years ago. Everything started out relatively normal. We met at a nice downtown restaurant for dinner. She was even prettier in person and the conversation was flowing. However, it didn't take long for me to realize she was a super private person. For example, she would not tell me her last name, where she worked, or say anything about her family. She made it clear that she was protecting herself, and honestly, I don't blame her. I shrugged it off and the date continued. She took great interest in the fact that I was in seminary studying to be a pastor. That was nice because usually it's a deal breaker for most women, at least in my experience. Towards the end of our meal, she confessed something to me. "I have something to tell you," she said, "but please don't think I'm crazy." I braced myself for whatever she was about to say. She explained that she recently moved into a new apartment. She lived alone, which was also a new thing. Though she couldn't put her finger on it, she was convinced there was a presence of a sinister and paranormal nature in her apartment. She had hardly slept since she moved in because she was plagued with constant nightmares and strange occurrences. I could see the fear and exhaustion in her eyes. She seemed quite sincere. "I can tell you're a good guy," she said. She elaborated that I seemed trustworthy and had a calming presence. "I know how this sounds, but would you please come home with me tonight? Honestly, I'm just scared to go back there alone. I am not looking for sex." I was really taken aback by this. It's not every day I get asked to spend the night with a beautiful woman whom I just met. I figured she was either telling the truth or she picked a really odd way to initiate something intimate. Either way, the night would be interesting. We talked for a bit longer and I agreed to spend the night with her. I followed her home. And when I walked into her apartment I was immediately struck with bad vibes. There was just something ominous about that place. I didn't want to freak her out, so I kept these feelings to myself. I said a quick prayer and followed her to the bedroom. We kissed and cuddled for a bit, nothing too crazy, and then she fell asleep. I just laid there for a while in the silent darkness, lost in thought. Sometime later, I most certainly heard someone walking down the hallway outside the bedroom. The door was closed, however, so I couldn't see anything. I was definitely frightened, but my curiosity got the better of me so I went to investigate. Slowly I opened the door. I looked to my left, then to my right. Nothing. I walked downstairs to check out the rest of the apartment. Nothing. I went back upstairs to check the bathroom and the guest bedroom. Nothing. When I walked out of the guest room, which was right across from my date's bedroom, I looked to my left and right again. At the end of the hallway, I saw a black, humanoid body standing there perfectly still. It was almost like a shadow, but I could discern that it was a three-dimensional figure. This figure was large in stature. There's no way it could have been my date. She was maybe 5'1" at best. I ran back into my date's room. To my horror, she wasn't in bed where I left her. I called out her name, but there was no response. I had just walked through the entire apartment, so it literally made no sense to me that she wasn't there. The bed was low to the ground, so she couldn't be under it. The closet was open too, and it was packed with boxes, so I knew she wasn't there either. The window was shut tight, plus it was the second story. It was as if she vanished. I grabbed my things and ran out of the apartment half dressed. The shadowy figure was gone. I jumped in my car and sped away. I never heard from her again. Her Tinder profile was deleted the next day, and she never responded to any of my texts. Till this day, I have no idea WTF happened that night. I maybe could have found my way back to her apartment again, but something in my gut tells me not to try. Anyways, this was easily one of the most terrifying, inexplicable things I've ever experienced. So many years ago I was dating a girl. Now that's supernatural in and of itself, but there's more. I cared for her deeply. First relationships will do that to you, but she was in a bad way. Too much partying, too many drugs, hanging with what is absolutely the wrong crowd, and some very illegal crap after she broke up with me that I'm really not comfortable discussing. A couple of years go by. I think of her on occasion and hope she's doing better, but not terribly often. Then one night I have the dream. In it she's standing by my bed and reassuring me that everything is okay, she's better now, and there's no need to worry about her anymore. Odd dream, but I don't think much of it until 2 days later when I catch sight of a newspaper with a story about having found her who had gone missing. She OD'd on heroin the night I had the dream. She wasn't a saint, but she'd also come up a bad way, and, according to what mutual friends had relayed to me, I'd been one of the few people who really cared about her. I don't really have an explanation for what happened, but I like to think that she wanted to make sure I knew she was going to be alright. It's part of what leaves me firmly believing in some sort of afterlife. Once when I was a little kid, hadn't started school yet, my siblings and I were playing hide and seek. I hid in one of the bedrooms between a bunk bed and the wall. It was a corner hiding spot, a window on the wall the bed wasn't on. I just sat in the corner waiting to be found, back to the wall, bed to my left, and wall with a window to my right. I didn't have anything covering me, so if you looked in the corner, you'd see me, right? Apparently, not. I remember that multiple people, siblings and parents, had looked into the corner but never said they found me, so I just kept sitting there. Eventually, my parents called the police. They could not find me. I came out after a while confused as to why no one had found me and wondering why the police were here. To this day my family, me included, joke that I can turn invisible. I lost my very tiny nose ring somewhere 2 days ago, and then I found it today sitting out in an obvious place and no one knows how it got there. Stuff like this literally happens all the time, and not once could I fathom how that was possible. Like, you look everywhere for that certain item and thoroughly search every inch of your desk 3 times, and then, suddenly, a day later, the item appears just to the right of your mouse or keyboard with no care in the world. Sometimes I dream about the future, but I can't even hype it up because it's always little things. I do this too. Although, mine always seem to be big things. I've dreamt about getting jobs I haven't applied for and deaths, most of which were sudden. It always creeps me out. Me and you are on 2 different levels here, but I mean I've given correct predictions on stuff, but that's like going from a DS to a fully decked out gaming PC. In the middle of the 90s we visited some family at their farm in another country, and the place was super rural, like they had some pipe coming out of the side of some mountain for fresh water and one of those dumpster toilets that are actually just a hole in the ground, and if it's full, they throw earth on it and dig a new one. So, it was in the middle of summer and super frigging hot, even at night. I had awoken around 3 AM because I needed to take a leak and went outside to go to that little crap hole in the ground. There was nearly no electric light outside, so no light pollution, just a brilliant starlit sky all over and around me. So I looked up and let it sink in and just enjoyed the moment, when suddenly a thick, fat, gleaming light beam raced from left to right over the sky, stopped freaking in the middle, hung there for about 0.5 to 1s and then raced off to the right. The whole thing lasted for less than 2s, but it left me dumbfounded. I was never a big UFO believer, but damn, what the frick was that? Oh my gosh, I had almost forgotten about this incident, but I saw something kind of similar. When I was in high school I dated a guy who lived a couple streets away from me, and we'd usually call each other to catch up in the evenings. One summer night, I had gone into the backyard to sit on the porch swing while we were talking, and I was kind of just spacing out staring at the stars and airplanes overhead. We lived by an airport so there were plenty. When I noticed what I thought was a really bright, large satellite slowly moving across the sky as satellites do. I tried to point it out to my BF, but he couldn't find it, and as I was watching and describing it, it made an abrupt 90-degree turn, sped up a little bit and then just vanished. It was super weird. I have an old TV my parents bought way back in 1986, when they were living in Germany. When I was little, that TV was retired from the main family TV to the basement TV, and my bedroom was in the basement. I very clearly remember waking up in the middle of the night, frequently and randomly, for years and laying down on the couch in front of that TV. It would turn itself on and play music for me so I could fall asleep on the couch. As I've grown older, moved from place to place with it, it's done other things, turning on to full screeching static when my toaster caught fire while I was in another room, or dramatically turning off and not coming back on when I've been awake for too long. Weird crap, really. I don't know what's up with it, or inside it, but there's something in there, and it's my oldest and most loyal friend. Edit. First, thank you kind stranger for the gold. Second, it is a Hitachi brand TV. They bought it on a military base post exchange. This would make a really good little comic. Just saying. Long live your friendly possessed German TV. When I was little I used to sit and draw at this small table we had in front of a window. From this window we could see into our front yard and the street at the edge of it. One day I'm doing my usual coloring while my dad is in the front yard talking to my uncles. When I peeked out I saw a very young looking white man wearing a mechanic's jumpsuit walk from behind my neighbor's house and into our yard. I remember I stopped coloring to watch him. He walked behind my uncle and disappeared behind our home. I was scared at that point, thinking he was a robber or something worse. Right when I was about to run for the front door, he reappeared. This time he walked from the other side of our home and up to the road. He looked both ways before continuing down the street. When my dad came back and I asked him why didn't he stop that man from walking in our yard. He told me he didn't see any man and he thought I imagined it. It made no sense. I remember seeing him vividly. I remember feeling genuine fear when he walked behind our home. But my dad and uncles didn't see him at all. I don't have any type of schizophrenia or other disorder. And I wasn't prone to hallucinate as a child. I always wonder if it was just my imagination after all. But it felt too real to be that. Edit. I wanted to come back and talk about a few points. Someone said that he could be checking the electric meter. My family still lives in the same house. The electric meter is located in the front yard. And as I said, he was wearing a mechanic's jumpsuit. I'm familiar with that type of wear because my grandfather and his brother have owned a shop since the 80s, so I've grown up around people in that profession. In the area I live, anyone who works for the city wear a specific type of clothing and always ride in a truck. They'd never just walk into a yard. And if they did, they would have interacted with my dad and at least make themselves known. My dad and my uncles did not look at him or even acknowledge him. My grandmother used to keep a lot of butterfly decorations around the house. When she was on her deathbed, her hospital room was decorated with butterflies. On her first birthday after her death, we released a balloon with messages written on them for her at midnight the time she was born. After we released said balloon, a bright yellow butterfly flew out from behind them. We have no idea where it came from. It was very shiny. To this day we are baffled.